The moment she stepped into the store, I swear the air shifted. You ever walk into a place and feel a storm brewing before a word is spoken? That was Karen. Her voice cut through the cozy hum of the pet shop like nails on glass. Her perfume choking the air as she marched toward the puppy pen. Oh God, not today, I thought, because I'd seen her before, and trust me, when Karen shows up, chaos follows. The bell over the door jingled, cheerful and light, but it was almost mocking compared to the fury in her stride. Puppies yipped happily, their tiny paws scratching against the plexiglass, tails wagging, unaware of the darkness about to unfold. Parents with kids smiled, pointing at the little fluff balls. Then Karen's voice slammed down. Excuse me, why are these puppies locked up like prisoners? This 1 inch. She jabbed her manicured finger at a tiny golden retriever. Belongs to me now. My jaw dropped. What? Did she seriously just claim ownership of a dog she hadn't even paid for? A hush fell over the store, every eye turning toward her. The cashier, a young guy barely out of college, stammered. Ma'am, we don't do instant adoptions like that. There's an application, a wait list. Karen's laugh cut him off. Harsh, sharp, mocking. Application, wait list. Please, don't you know who I am? I can buy this entire store if I wanted. Now hand over the puppy before I call corporate and have you fired. I swear I heard someone in the back whisper. Here we go again. My chest tightened. I wanted to step in, but I also wanted to watch how far she'd go this time. Because something in her tone told me she was about to cross a line so thick she'd never step back over it. The puppy she pointed at whimpered, its tiny body trembling as if it knew it was the center of Karen's storm. The young cashier tried again, his voice shaking. Ma'am, I'm sorry, but if you'd like to start the adoption process. Slam. Karen's purse hit the counter, loud enough to make one of the puppies yelp. Gasps rippled through the store. She leaned in, eyes blazing. Do you know how much money I spend here? I don't do paperwork. I deserve this puppy. I caught my reflection in the glass of the hamster cages beside me. My brows knitted tight. Deserve. That word burned in my ears. Who the hell deserves to just take an animal without care? Without love? Without process? My blood boiled. Then it happened. In one swift, terrifying motion, Karen reached over the pen wall, scooped up the golden retriever and clutched it to her chest. The pup squealed, kicking in panic, its tiny claws scrabbling against her blouse. There. See? She barked. He loves me already. We're leaving. Ma'am, put the dog down. The cashier cried, his voice breaking. The parents in the store pulled their kids back, shielding them from the growing madness. A little girl burst into tears, whispering, Mommy, is she stealing him? My fists clenched. Yes, sweetheart. She is. The store manager, a woman in her 40s with tired eyes but the kind of steel spine you only see in retail veterans, stormed out from the back. Put that dog down immediately, she commanded, her voice like a gavel. Karen laughed again, but this time it was wild, desperate. No, you people are cruel. Locking up innocent babies like this. I'm rescuing him. Rescuing. The irony was suffocating. She wasn't rescuing. She was snatching. And just when I thought it couldn't escalate further, Karen bolted. Yes, she actually ran. Heels clacking like gunshots on the linoleum. Puppy squealing in her arms. The bell over the door screamed as it swung open. Stop her. Someone shouted. I froze for half a second, then jolted forward. But it was too late. Karen was out the door. The world outside exploded with chaos. Horns blared as she darted across the parking lot, clutching the terrified pup. The manager shouted for someone to call the police. And then, like divine intervention, a patrol car just happened to be parked 2 shops down. The officer stepped out, sunglasses glinting, his brow furrowed. He caught sight of Karen immediately. "Ma'am, stop right there." Did she stop? Of course not. Karen never stops. She spun around, shrieking, "She's mine. This is my dog," and tried to push past him. What happened next was like watching karma itself slam down in real time. The officer grabbed her wrist. The puppy slipped from her arms into his and she went ballistic. "How dare you touch me? I'll sue you. Do you know how important I am?" The officer, calm but firm, said the words that made the entire crowd outside the store cheer inside their hearts. "You're under arrest for attempted theft and animal endangerment." Click. The handcuffs snapped around her wrists. The puppy yipped, safe in the officer's arms, tail wagging again as if sensing freedom. And Karen, she screamed. Oh, she screamed, like a banshee dragged to hell. "This isn't over. I'll ruin you all. You can't do this to me." But they could. And they did. I stood frozen in the doorway, chest heaving, the scent of Karen's perfume still hanging like poison in the air. My ears buzzed with the sound of the crowd murmuring. Kids asking questions. Parents shaking their heads. One man muttered, "About time." The manager beside me exhaled so hard I thought she might collapse. "Every damn week it's something with her," she whispered. "But this is the last straw." And it was, because word spread fast. Not just in our town. Not just through whispers at the register. But online. Oh yeah, someone had filmed the whole thing on their phone. The video went viral before Karen even got booked at the station. Millions of views. Comments pouring in. "Who steals a puppy? That poor dog looked terrified." Finally, a Karen faces consequences. But the bitter twist. The stores in the entire shopping complex banded together. They posted her picture in their windows, banned. Trespassers will be prosecuted. Grocery store, nail salon, bakery, even the tiny frozen yogurt shop. Every door she once stormed through was now closed forever. I saw her a week later, sitting in her car outside the plaza, staring at the signs. Her hands clenched the steering wheel, her face pale, her jaw tight. She looked smaller somehow, deflated. And when she noticed me walking by, our eyes met. For the first time, she didn't speak. She didn't scream. She didn't demand. She just sank lower in her seat, hiding. That's when I realized, for people like Karen, silence is the loudest defeat of all. And yet, part of me couldn't shake the image of that puppy trembling in her arms. The sheer arrogance in her voice. The way children had cried watching her. The memory haunted me. Because the truth is, it wasn't just about a dog. It was about entitlement, cruelty, and how far some people will go when they think rules don't apply to them. A sigh slipped from my chest as I pushed the thought away. The puppy had found a good home. I heard a sweet family from our neighborhood adopted him through the proper process. He was safe, loved, happy. And Karen, she was left with nothing but her bitterness, her bans and her record. Maybe justice doesn't always roar in with dramatic music. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's a dog wagging its tail in a new home while the villain sits alone in a car, realizing the world has finally closed its doors. And honestly, that's the kind of ending that feels heavier than any scream. Thank you for listening to my story. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the channel for more. The gun was shaking in her hands. My little boy's wide eyes locked on the barrel, his small fists clutching his toy truck as if it were a shield. And this wasn't even a cop. It was the HOA president, Karen, dressed up in some fake uniform she bought online. My God, who does that? Who points a weapon at a child? Drop it! I screamed, my voice cracking as I stepped in front of my son. My chest was heaving, adrenaline burning my throat. The cul-de-sac was quiet, eerie. just the hum of cicadas in the summer heat. Then her shrill voice cut through the air like a siren. "He was trespassing," Karen yelled, finger twitching near the trigger. "I told you these HOA rules are law. And if you won't discipline him, I will." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This wasn't some noise complaint or grass-length argument. She was weaponizing her obsession. I swear, in that moment, I felt time slow, every bead of sweat on my temple, every shallow breath from my boy, every heartbeat pounding against my ribs. And then, another voice, a low, commanding baritone that froze her in place. "Ma'am, put that gun down." Out of nowhere, a tall man in jeans and a ball cap stepped into view, calm but radiating authority. He had that look, you know the one, broad stance, sharp eyes, like he'd stared down danger more times than he could count. He pulled a badge from his back pocket and held it up. "You, Federal Marshal." Karen's face went white, her knees literally buckling. The pistol clattered to the concrete, the sharp metallic echo bouncing against the neat suburban houses. My son whimpered, burying his face into my side, and I held him tight, whispering, "It's okay, buddy, it's okay now." But the truth, it wasn't okay. Not yet. The marshal, his name turned out to be Jack, kept his gaze fixed on her. "You threatened a minor with a firearm. Do you understand the gravity of what you just did?" His words hit like thunder, each one making Karen shrink further. I didn't mean. He was on the HOA property," she stammered, voice cracking. "Lady, this isn't a neighborhood committee squabble. This is federal-level assault with a deadly weapon. On a child." His hand was steady, but his eyes, they burned. Neighbors had started peeking out from behind curtains. Phones raised, recording. The entire street was holding its breath. And me, my hands were trembling, not just from fear but from a fury I'd never known. How dare she, pretending to be law enforcement, pointing a gun at my kid, all because she thought the HOA gave her the right. I wanted to scream at her, to demand why, to shake her until she admitted how insane this was. But Jack's presence anchored me. He was the wall between chaos and control. And then came the twist. Karen's husband, a meek man who usually just nodded along with her tirades, stepped out of their house. But instead of defending her, he walked straight to Jack. "Sir," he said, voice low, trembling, "I've been keeping records, videos. She's been escalating for months. I didn't know it would get this far." He handed over a flash drive. Please take this. I can't protect her anymore." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Karen's head whipped toward him, eyes wide with betrayal. "You, traitor. After everything I've done to keep this neighborhood in line." He didn't even flinch. "You nearly killed a child. Karen, you've lost yourself." For a moment, the only sound was the distant bark of a dog. Then the marshal nodded, pocketed the flash drive and called it in. Sirens wailed faintly in the distance, growing louder by the second. Karen collapsed to the pavement, sobbing, mascara streaking down her face. The once untouchable queen of HOA tyranny, reduced to a broken mess in front of everyone she used to intimidate. And the neighbors, they weren't silent anymore. One woman shouted, "You terrorized us for years, Karen. This is what you get." Another man added, "You called my son a criminal for riding his skateboard. Now look at you." Phones stayed raised, capturing every moment, the air alive with both anger and relief. I exhaled shakily, hugging my boy tighter. He looked up at me, his small voice muffled against my shirt. "Daddy, is she going to jail?" I crouched to meet his eyes, forcing a steady tone. "Yes, buddy, she is, and she won't ever scare you again." The squad cars pulled in. Lights flashing red and blue across the neat white fences and manicured lawns. Officers cuffed Karen, reading her rights as she screamed about rescue missions and protecting the HOA's sovereignty. It was pathetic. Jack turned to me. "You'll want to file charges. And don't worry. You've got plenty of witnesses. This won't just disappear." I nodded, still dazed, still holding my son as though letting go might break him. "Thank you," I whispered, the weight of what could have happened crashing into me all at once. But the most haunting part, as they hauled her away, Karen's sobs shifted into bitter mutters. "You'll all regret this. The HOA was my army. You'll see." It sent a chill down my spine. Because sometimes villains don't go quietly. Sometimes they cling to the very end. And yet, in that same moment, I realized something powerful. She wasn't in control anymore. Her reign had ended. Not with another petty fine or power trip, but with handcuffs and humiliation. That night, the neighborhood buzzed with whispers, laughter, even cautious relief. Parents let their kids play outside a little longer. Porch lights glowed warmer. Felt like a shadow had lifted. Still, when I tucked my boy into bed, I couldn't shake the echo of the gun's click. The tremble in his voice. "Daddy, why do people like her exist?" he asked softly. I swallowed hard, brushing his hair back. Because sometimes people confuse power with respect. But the truth, real respect comes from kindness, not fear. He nodded sleepily, as if he understood more than I gave him credit for. And maybe, just maybe, that night changed him too. But I'll never forget the sight of Karen collapsing in front of a crowd that had once tiptoed around her. It was more than justice. It was karma, raw and unflinching. And if you've ever wondered whether arrogance and cruelty eventually catch up with people, that day, in our quiet little cul-de-sac, the answer was clear. Because even the loudest, most dangerous HOA cop can't outrun the law when a real badge steps in. Thank you for listening this story. If you felt the outrage and the relief like I did, please subscribe to my YouTube channel for more HOA drama, karma twists, and true tales of justice that sometimes even end with a lawsuit. I'll never forget the sound of that gate creaking. It was like the opening note to a song I didn't want to hear. Sharp, rusty, and loud, cutting into the morning air. Squeak, clank. I froze on the porch with my coffee halfway to my lips. My wife, Sarah, was just tightening the last bolt on the hinge. And then I heard it. Heels striking against the pavement like a gavel coming down in a courtroom. "Karen, you can't do that. You can't just change the gate," she screeched, her voice slicing through the quiet neighborhood like broken glass. Oh God, here we go again. See, Karen wasn't just any neighbor. She was the self-appointed sheriff of our homeowners association. The kind who thought every hedge, every mailbox, every trash bin belonged to her domain. She was always watching, always ready to pounce. But this time, she walked right into a storm she didn't even know was brewing. Sarah straightened, brushed her hands on her jeans, and looked at Karen with this calm, steady expression that somehow made me nervous. The old latch was broken, she said softly. It wasn't locking properly. I fixed it. Fixed it. Karen spat the words like they were poison. You tampered with homeowners association property. That's vandalism. You could be fined. She whipped out her phone dramatically. Reported. Reported. That word hit me like a slap. I almost laughed. Almost. But I caught Sarah's eyes and I saw something flicker there. Not fear. Not anger. Something else. Like she was waiting. Go ahead, Sarah murmured, voice low. Karen blinked. For a second, she hesitated. But then she dialed. Loud, deliberate beeps. My stomach sank, though I had no reason to feel guilty. It wasn't just about the gate anymore. It was about power. control. And then came the twist. The part Karen never saw coming. Because when she reported my wife, she wasn't just calling in a petty complaint about a rusty latch. She was poking a hornet's nest. She didn't know who Sarah really was. I stepped closer, almost whispering, "You sure you want to do this?" Karen sneered, already on the phone with the homeowners association rep. "Absolutely. Rules are rules. Some people think they're above them, but not in this neighborhood." Sarah's lips curved into the faintest smile, a smile that made me shiver. Later that afternoon, the homeowners association board demanded an emergency meeting. Karen strutted into the clubhouse like she'd just been crowned queen. Her heels echoed off the tile floor, each step punctuated by the smug smirk plastered on her face. The board sat stiffly around a long oak table, papers stacked neatly, pens aligned. Karen slapped her folder down with a theatrical flourish. "This woman," she pointed dramatically at Sarah, "illegally altered community property. I demand fines, immediate action, and possible expulsion proceedings." I swear I heard thunder rumble outside, though maybe it was just my imagination. Sarah leaned back, crossed her arms, and said nothing. The silence stretched. Karen basked in it, certain she had won. And then, finally, Sarah spoke. "Do you really want to go down this road, Karen?" The board shifted uncomfortably. Whispers. Throats cleared. Karen laughed. High-pitched. "Fake. What? Are you threatening me now?" "No," Sarah said calmly. "Just asking. Because if you file that report, if you push for penalties, you'll force us to disclose our background. And once that happens," she paused, her eyes narrowing ever so slightly, "it'll all be on record." I swear you could hear Karen's confidence crack. A little gasp escaped her, like she'd just stepped into ice water. "What background?" one of the board members asked curiously. Karen's hand trembled as she smoothed her papers. It doesn't matter." She broke the rules. Sarah reached slowly into her bag. The sound of the zipper unzipping echoed like a drum roll. She pulled out an ID card and slid it across the table. Military insignia gleamed under the fluorescent lights. My wife wasn't just a rule breaker. She was a federal officer, recently reassigned after years of service in high-security operations. The room went silent. Dead silent. Karen's jaw dropped. She opened her mouth, closed it again, opened it once more like a fish out of water. "Oh my God," one of the board members whispered. "Exactly," Sarah said softly. Karen's face went pale, her lipstick suddenly too bright against her bloodless skin. The arrogance drained out of her like water swirling down a sink. And that was the first time I saw her break. But here's the thing. Karen wasn't the kind to back down completely. No, like a cornered cat. She lashed out even harder. The very next day, she plastered our driveway with violation notices. She called code enforcement on us for unauthorized modifications. She even tried to rally the neighbors, whispering poison into their ears about how dangerous we were, how Sarah was abusing her authority. I wanted to scream, to tear down every paper, to shout from the rooftops. But Sarah, she just watched. Calm. Patient. "Why aren't you doing anything?" I demanded one night, my voice breaking. "She's turning everyone against us." Sarah sighed, placing her hand over mine. "Because the louder she screams, the more obvious it becomes. Let her dig her own hole." And oh, did Karen dig. She staged photos of our trash cans left out too long. She even accused us of hosting illegal gatherings when all we'd done was barbecue with two friends. Each accusation more desperate, more unhinged. Until one night, when it all snapped. It was late. Crickets chirped in the warm summer air. Sarah and I were sitting on the porch, the glow of string lights casting a soft halo around us. Then, footsteps. Heavy, angry, fast. Karen. She stormed up the walkway, face twisted with rage, papers clutched in her fist. You think you're untouchable, don't you? You think your precious badge means you can break all the rules. Sarah stood slowly, eyes level with hers. Go home, Karen. No, I won't. This is my neighborhood.
Mine.
And I will not let some outsider come in and destroy everything. Her voice cracked, wild and shrill, echoing off the quiet houses. Porch lights flicked on up and down the street. Curtains twitched. People were watching. Karen, I said carefully, you need to calm down. Shut up, she shrieked, spinning on me. And then, in a flash of madness, she shoved Sarah. Gasps from the neighbors. My heart stopped. But Sarah didn't stumble, didn't fall. She just stepped forward, calm as ever, and said, You just crossed the line. That's when headlights swept across the street. A black SUV rolled up, window sliding down. A man leaned out, badge glinting in the beam of the porch lights. One of Sarah's colleagues. Off duty but watching. Karen froze. Her entire body stiffened like she'd been carved out of stone. And in that single moment, she knew. She was finished. The lawsuit hit a month later. Not from us. From the Homeowners Association itself. Turns out, Sarah's background forced the board to review every single one of Karen's complaints. And what did they find? Fraud. Harassment. Misuse of Homeowners Association funds. The irony. The woman who lived to report everyone else had just reported herself into destruction. When the sheriff's deputies showed up at her door, Karen wailed, clutching at her pearls like some tragic actress in a soap opera. But no one was buying tickets to her show anymore. Neighbors turned their backs. The board stripped her title. She lost everything. Her power, her influence, her voice. And still, I remember the look on her face that night on our porch. That frozen, pale, hollow expression when she realized who Sarah really was. That was the exact moment her empire began to crumble. Some nights, I sit out there on the porch with my coffee, listening to the creak of the gate Sarah fixed. Squeak, clank, and I smile, because every sound of that latch reminds me, no matter how loud they scream, bullies always meet their reckoning. Karen thought she was the law. She learned real fast what the law actually looks like. And in the end, justice wasn't just served. It was sealed, signed and delivered with the bitter taste of her own downfall. So if you've ever had a Karen in your life, remember this: sometimes, the best revenge isn't shouting back. Sometimes, it's just letting the truth catch up to them. Thank you for sticking with me through this story. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Homeowners Association justice tales, because you never know which Karen will end up in the next lawsuit. I knew something was off the second I saw them standing near the event gates with clipboards and smug little smirks. Park safety inspection, they announced, though no one had called one. 10 minutes later, our charity event for the kids was in chaos. Parents being shooed away, and the fire department pulling up with flashing lights because apparently someone reported a dangerous gas leak. You ever feel your blood boil so fast you swear you can hear it? That was me, standing there holding a tray of cupcakes I'd baked for the fundraiser, watching the Karen sisters Donna and Marie pretend they were some kind of public heroes. Only problem? They weren't heroes. They were the reason the whole thing was shutting down. Donna's hair was sprayed into this perfect, stiff helmet, and Marie's oversized sunglasses reflected every bit of the panic they'd caused. People were whispering, "Is it real? Should we leave?" While kids clung to their parents, their faces crumpling with disappointment. I overheard Marie telling someone, "Oh, we had to step in that old gas line under the pavilion is dangerous. We smelled it earlier." I wanted to scream, because I'd been there since 6 in the morning helping set up tables, and I'd walked past that same pavilion at least a dozen times. No smell. No danger. No leak. The truth? They just hated that the HOA-approved park was being used for something they didn't control. Sigh. It was classic Karen politics. They tried to block the event in the HOA meeting 2 months ago, claiming liability concerns code for, "We don't want other people deciding what happens here." The vote didn't go their way, so they'd clearly decided to take matters into their own manicured hands. But here's the kicker: the fire captain took one deep breath near the so-called leak zone, then frowned. "I'm not getting anything," he said, waving his gas detector around. The thing didn't even twitch. That should have been the end of it, except one of the firefighters glanced over at the fence line and spotted something that made my jaw drop. There, half hidden behind the shrubbery, was a small portable propane cylinder, like the kind you'd hook up to a camping stove with the nozzle slightly open. I swear you could hear the snap of the Karen's confidence cracking. Donna tried to act shocked. "Oh my goodness, where did that come from?" But the firefighter wasn't buying it. "Well," he said slowly, "it's on the HOA property side, and the chain lock's still on the gate. Who's got the key?" You could almost see the color drain from Marie's face. The captain ordered everyone out of the immediate area just in case, and that's when the hazmat team rolled up. Big yellow suits, heavy boots clomping, radios crackling. Kids were wide-eyed, parents were muttering under their breath, and I just stood there, biting my tongue so hard it hurt, because in my head, I already knew how this was going to go. Sure enough, once they checked the cylinder and the lock records, it was obvious the leak was staged, and the only ones with access to that locked gate without calling maintenance. Yep, the Karen sisters, thanks to their positions on the HOA grounds committee. But oh, it got better. While hazmat was still there, a city safety officer walked up with a clipboard and a look that could cut glass. "We've also received a tip that a forged inspection form was submitted to the HOA board last night, claiming the pavilion failed a safety check." I blinked. Forged? Turns out, someone had emailed the HOA president a gas line hazard report on official-looking city letterhead, except the safety officer whose name was on it was standing right there, in front of us, saying, "I didn't write this, and this isn't even our format." Donna stammered, "Well, maybe it was just a misunderstanding," but Marie shot her a look like, "Shut up before you make it worse." Too late. The officer said flatly, "Filing a falsified safety report is a criminal offense. You might want to call your lawyer." Oh, that was my favorite moment of the day. The Karens were suddenly very quiet, hanging back as the hazmat team packed up and the fire trucks pulled away. Parents started drifting back to the playground, shaking their heads. The kids didn't get their big event. The bouncy houses were already deflating. The food trucks had rolled out, but the mood shifted when someone whispered, "They're in trouble." And trouble was putting it lightly. By Monday morning, word had spread like wildfire. The HOA president called an emergency meeting not to protect the community, like Donna liked to say, but to deal with legal liabilities arising from fraudulent actions by committee members. I went, of course. Couldn't miss it. Donna tried her usual confident act, walking in with a big tote bag like she was ready to run the show. But the second the city attorney laid a manila folder in front of her, she deflated. Inside were photos of the propane tank in place, copies of the forged email, and get the security camera stills from a neighbor's Ring camera that showed the two of them carrying something behind the fence at 5:42 that morning. The room went silent except for the faint click of someone's pen. The attorney explained the fines. $22,000 from hazmat for false hazardous materials deployment, plus potential restitution for the event costs. The HOA's insurance wouldn't cover a dime because it was an intentional act, and if they didn't pay, well, lawsuit city. Donna muttered, "We were just trying to keep people safe. Couldn't help it." I laughed, out loud. "Oh yeah? Is that why you brought a propane tank from your own garage?" Gasped. A couple of muffled chuckles from the back row. Marie snapped, "You don't know what you're talking about." But her voice was shaking. "Actually," the attorney said, sliding another photo across the table, "we do. This tank's serial number matches a purchase from your HomePro account last year. You could have heard a pin drop." And here's the secondary twist: while everyone was fixated on the gas leak drama, another resident stood up and said, "By the way, the Karens also billed the HOA for emergency safety signage last month, but the invoice number belongs to a landscaping company in Ohio." Fraud on top of fraud. The Karens both went pale. The HOA meeting ended with more than just a vote. It ended with a full-on motion to remove Donna and Marie from every committee they'd ever sat on. The president didn't even bother to hide his relief when it passed unanimously. No more grounds inspections. No more safety walkthroughs. No more HOA micromanagement disguised as civic duty. But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, they were served. Right there, in front of the whole block. The process server stepped out of his car, envelopes in hand, and asked, "Donna and Marie Haskins?" When they hesitated, he read their names louder, like it was a bad reality TV reveal. They had no choice but to take the thick, crinkling packets. It was the lawsuit, the city, the hazmat department, and the HOA collectively demanding damages. $22,000 in fines, plus another $12,000 in restitution for the ruined charity event. Add in legal fees, and they were staring down a financial crater they couldn't possibly fill without selling their precious golf cart and maybe even their matching patio furniture sets. I wish I could tell you they took it gracefully. They didn't. First came the blame game. Donna swore it was Marie's idea. Marie claimed Donna pushed her into it. Then came the sympathy tour, sad little social media posts about being unfairly targeted and community politics gone wrong. But the comments section? Brutal. Screenshots of the security footage. Memes of propane tanks. Someone even photoshopped a hazmat worker into their Christmas card from last year. And karma wasn't done yet. When their insurance company found out about the fraud angle, they not only refused to help, they dropped them as clients. A local paper ran a small piece about HOA officials accused in gas leak hoax, complete with an awkward photo of the sisters trying to hide behind a potted plant outside the courthouse. By the time the first court date rolled around, the Karens had that haunted, over-caffeinated look people get when they're one bad day away from snapping. I saw them in the hallway, whispering furiously while their attorney flipped through a stack of papers, shaking his head. No settlement deal was coming. They were going to trial. That night, I walked past the park. The bouncy houses weren't there, the food trucks weren't lined up, but the air was clean and calm. And for the first time in months, I didn't feel that tight, frustrated knot in my chest. Justice wasn't just coming, it was already here. In legal paperwork and court dates and fines they'd never escape. It's funny. They thought shutting down one little charity event would prove they had power. Instead, all they proved was that no one, not even self-appointed HOA royalty, is above the law when fraud and lawsuits are involved. If you love seeing HOA Karens get exactly what they deserve, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel because the next lawsuit story I've got will make this one look like a picnic.